Hello, where we are listeners. If you're a longtime fan of this podcast or you're just joining us for the first time today, we want to tell you more about our podcast platform called Spotify for Podcasters. We've been using this platform for over a year, and it's been easy to use, and new features are added all the time. You can record and edit podcasts from your phone or computer. You don't need anything fancy, and you don't need previous podcast experience. When you hit publish, you will distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify if that's your kind of thing. And with Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. But here's the thing, you can earn money, but it's a free platform. There's no catch. If you're curious or want to see what it's all about, download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started.
Hello, Michael. So what will you have to drink?
I think just a glass of Barbera. We have an open bottle. I'll keep making progress on that.
Okay, sounds good.
This is Where's the Love? I'm Michael Ware.
I'm Melissa Ware.
And this is a late night. This is quiet storm time recording.
How did I know immediately after you said late night that you were going to say quiet storm?
Because we've known each other a long time. I appreciate you getting me this bottle of Barbera.
You're welcome.
You are cut off for the night because you've been drinking gin and tonic with Catherine all night.
Yeah, and Manpreet.
Yeah, and Manpreet. And so we're recording a bit later after Final Four, and that Duke UNC game was unbelievable and a heartbreaker for Duke fans. And so our condolences to Duke fans, and just to cover all of our bases, congratulations to UNC fans. Hey, Melissa.
Wait, did they win? Is that the whole enchilada?
No.
Okay.
So UNC will face Kansas on Monday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But this was Coach K's last game.
Okay.
Coaching. Yeah.
Coach K.
Coach K of Duke.
The people who lost. Okay, yes. Right.
Yeah.
This means absolutely nothing to me, folks.
Yeah. It means a lot to a lot of people.
Yes. No, I'm aware of that. I'm just letting people know that I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah. Hey, so we have quite a bit we want to cover on the episode today. Yuval Levin had a op-ed in the New York Times that I thought was great. It's also, something I argue quite a bit. The headline is, "Why do our politicians keep pursuing a losing strategy?" And we'll dig into that. But first, Melissa and I thought we have a little bit of space. Obviously, there is a lot going on in the news, but there wasn't really anything that jumped out that we wanted to dig into. And so we thought we'd just share a bit about our story, how we met, maybe how we got engaged. Yeah.
We'll see where we get to.
Yeah, we'll see where we get to. But Melissa, I've known you a long time.
You have known me a long time, since I was 12.
Yes. And so we went to middle school together. So you were a year behind me, a year younger than me. And
middle school at Benjamin Franklin Middle School in Tonawanda, New York.
Benjamin Franklin Middle School. And why don't you sort of kick it off? Sort of, when did you... Well, so what's funny about this is that I actually met your mom before.
Yes.
So your mother for a time was a cafeteria, was in the cafeteria, right?
Yep. She was a monitor, lunch monitor.
She was a lunch monitor at school and would have to try and keep me from not moving from table to table.
You should hear my mom talking about this.
She's been trying to wrangle me ever since. But so had that experience. We probably crossed paths in middle school.
Yeah, we did.
But it was really in high school that we got to know each other.
Yep.
We were both in show choir.
Yes.
And so probably my sophomore year.
Yeah.
You got in your freshman year, right? Or
No,
did you not get in until sophomore year?
I didn't get in until
So we weren't in show choir together until.
Yeah.
But you did. Did you do the shows your freshman year?
I did do Good News. Yes.
Okay. So we had some theater experience and got to know each other a bit, sort of my sophomore year, her freshman year. But then we were in a pretty intensive show choir starting my junior year, your sophomore year. That's together. Correct. And yeah, why don't you take it from here?
Yes, you love when I tell the story of how we met and how we got together, because it's a fun, complicated story. Every time we tell other people this story, they're always cracking up. Yes. So it was show choir that brought us together. We were theater kids, everybody. And it was October, it wasn't quite October 31st, but we were at a Halloween party where most of the people from this choir were gathered at. It was on some late October night. And, I'm walking around the party and I joined this little group of people, and I cannot tell you who else was in this group of people talking, but I know that Michael was, because we joked around for a little bit. I thought to myself, wow, this guy is so mature and so intelligent. I really like him. And I went home and told my mom that.
And we talked in the kitchen, right? I remember.
So I remember by the bonfire, really connecting.
Outside?
Yeah, outside by the bonfire. Okay. Yeah, because we were talking about what's that movie that I believe was remade. It was a Japanese movie. It was a horror movie.
Grudge.
The Grudge.
The Grudge.
I made a joke about The Grudge, and you told me, wow, that was a really good callback, Melissa, because there was something said about The Grudge earlier, and then I brought it back via a joke. And you said that's such a great callback. And I remember thinking, I don't even know what a callback is, but apparently I'm good at them.
I was very into stand-up comedy, and so I knew what a callback was able to use that information to ensnare you.
Yes. Yeah. And so I went home and told my mom that night that I met this boy and I really like him. And she remembers this particular conversation because she saw that I was completely and utterly enamored already. And so, that was October of 2004. And then a few months later, May 2nd, 2005, Michael and I started dating after becoming friends and talking quite a bit. And I was completely into him. It was love. It was conversation love at first sight, but based on conversation. So we started dating, and I'm just super into him, and he's just chill. The whole relationship. I can't quite read him. Michael, especially in their early on dating relationship, you were such an enigma to me. You were so closed off with exactly what you're feeling. And so I was constantly left guessing, folks. I was constantly trying to read Michael's AIM away messages, thinking, is he in a good mood? Is he in a bad mood? Is this AIM a message about me? So anyways, in July, right at the beginning of July, Michael goes off to New York State, Boys State. If you don't know,
went to Boys State. It's American Legion run program. Y'all may have seen I think it was an Apple doc.
A documentary was made.
It was a documentary made on Boys State.
It's a very good doc.
Yeah, and so I basically was off the grid for a week. By the way, the first speaker for Boys State was Elliot Spitzer. So we, really raising the high character folks at Boys State. They really inspired the next generation. But so I was away at Boys State, and
I'll continue on.
Okay, you pick it up. Yeah.
And we have cell phones, we're able to text. And Michael doesn't text me the entire week. This is like 7 whole days without any communication. And Michael had told me at the beginning, Melissa, I'm really going to be unavailable. I really need to focus on this. I'm not really going to be able to talk. Maybe we will, but probably not. And so I wasn't too alarmed by this, but I missed him. And then basically right as Michael was returning, Michael found out that his grandfather died. And Michael's papa is Michael's most important figure in his life growing up. Michael, you could describe exactly what he means to you, but he's very, very important to Michael. And so I see Michael next at the wake for his grandfather at a funeral home. And I come in, and Michael, is very stern when he sees me, but why wouldn't he be? He's incredibly sad and very much into the grieving process already. And he pulls me away from everybody and just outside. And he basically tells me that he cannot be dating me at this time because he has too much to focus on. His grandfather's death has really rocked him, and he needs to focus on his studies, and he's going to be going away to college. And he just can't make this work. He just can't see he cannot see a future for us. And so I take this just in total surprise. We're at the wake. All of his mom, his Italian aunts are all inside. And so I walk back inside, and I don't talk to anybody else because I text my mom right away saying, please come get me immediately. And luckily my mom had just been driving around because she figured I wouldn't be there for too long. So she stayed around because we were a good 30 minutes from my house. And so she got there within a couple minutes, thank God, because I walked out to that car. Still, I walked through that entire funeral parlor, not with a stone face, trying not to cry so that I wouldn't be calling attention to myself because it was not about me. And I get to the car, and I just burst into racking sobs. And my mom, her mom is like, what is yes, it's very sad. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, he broke up with me. My mom is like, what? And Michael could tell the story about coming back inside and all of the Italian women in his family swarming him.
Yeah, right. So I shouldn't be standing here today.
You should not, Michael.
Having chosen a funeral parlor to break up with your Melissa.
Girlfriend.
But yeah, so I have this horde of Italian aunts who are watching all of this take place outside the funeral parlor, through the window because we were right by the door, and I come back in. And they just swarm. What did you do to that poor girl? But to tell you the truth, I was a teenage boy. I didn't know what to do with a girlfriend in the first place. And then when my grandfather passed, it was such an unmooring thing that I just felt. I'm not being a good boyfriend to this girl anyways, and now I have no relational bandwidth, and so I just said, I'm going to break up with her the next time I see her. Well, the next time I saw her was at a funeral parlor. But you came by, so I do this, right? Not a good move, not a considerate move. Though there were extenuating circumstances. But Melissa comes by, and honestly, even in the moment, I filed it in the back of my mind that she was the kind of person who would do this. But she came to drop off a card, like a condolence card, at my house. I think it was the day of the funeral.
The day after.
The day after the funeral.
Because I attended the funeral. I did still go and attend the funeral, by the way.
Yeah, so she attended the funeral. I saw her there. I thought, well, that's interesting. And then she dropped off this card. I didn't come, but she gave it to my mother. And so I filed that back. So we get through the summer. We have a school play my senior year, her junior year, and it's Christmas Carol. And what do you know? I get cast as Scrooge, and Melissa gets cast as Ghost of Christmas Past. And so for like the next 3-4 months, we're spending, obviously we have classes, we got show choir during the day, and then we have like rehearsal every night basically for 3-4 months. And so we're starting to get reacquainted, and I'm an old man who's got to hold the hand of the Ghost of Christmas Past on stage for the whole first act, and so we're holding the hands on stage.
So let me take over here.
Yeah.
Because again, Michael has got the whole like innocent 17-year-old boy thing going on. Well, behind the scenes in my world. So going back to that card that I handed him the day after the funeral, I went to a Christian bookstore for the very first time in my life because I was like, I want a religious card to give to Michael. Wow. Because we had actually first connected after that Halloween party over the fact that I was starting to attend the chapel in Buffalo, which is a big church, and he was starting to attend the chapel, and that was one of the ways that we bonded. And one of the ways that we further bonded, becoming friends and then dating, was that we were both burgeoning Christians. And so I wanted to get him something because I felt like a movement deep in the spirit that I shouldn't just let him grieve alone. And so I went to this Christian bookstore for the very first time in my life, very overwhelmed. And I spent like my mom, again, such a trooper, took me there just to support me. Spent like 2.5 hours there with me as I picked the perfect card. Like, I've never taken that long to pick a card in my life, ever again. And I wrote him this long letter because I knew that Michael responded well to writing. And like, this is a theme throughout our relationship, that Michael is a writer and he responds to that, and I am not. I'm the opposite. If I didn't have to write more than a sentence for the rest of my life, I'd be very happy. And so I wrote to him, my very first letter to him. I'd never written to him before, and I wrote it, hand wrote it in this card, and handed it to his mom because he refused to come to the door to answer the door. And Michael's mom had to say, "Oh yeah, he's not home," when he was in fact home. So anyways, fast forward, we're at this play now. Basically, after a couple weeks after, his grandfather died and he had broken up with me, I began Operation Get Michael Back. Because I thought, no, this is the guy for me.
Like a less creepy Robin Thicke, basically.
I'm probably going to sound slightly unhinged for the rest of the story. Just beware. And so, we get to this play, and at that point, I knew a couple of girlfriends who were starting to crush on Michael, and I thought,
one of them was writing me letters, which must have sent up some red flags.
It sent up just like DEFCON. Just everything was alerted. And so the one person was actually a really, really, really good friend of mine, and I said to her, it's girl code, man. You can't just go and date him. And she was like, oh yeah, you're right. So anyways, we get through this play, and it was so much fun acting beside him because I got to be close to him. I got to hold his hand so much, and I get so many butterflies every time I'd hold your hand. And then, we start going through the rest of the year, and then there is this other girl who I knew was crushing on, the one that was writing letters. It was a burgeoning relationship. Well, my best friend, Brian, also was crushing on this girl. So I basically said, hey, Brian, have you ever thought about dating this person? Man. And he was like, yes. And he's like, yeah, because, I really like her. I'm really into her. And they started dating because she was also into him. So
unbelievable.
That meant that she was also removed from the game. And then we get into...
It's like Survivor over here.
And at this point, while all this is happening and Brian is starting to date this other girl, we're in the spring musical, Bye Bye Birdie, and Michael has a lead. And... we get through that, we're again together at night, but I didn't have any part. I was just in the ensemble. I think I had some bit part, I think I was named Margie.
You did have a cute green and white polka dot dress, though.
My mom sewed my dress from a McCall's, from Joanne's thing, and it turned out so cute. Yeah. I love that dress. And So we get to, and Michael and I are talking more and more and more, and I feel like I'm getting some vibes from him that he might be open to a relationship again. And so we get to the cast party for the musical, which SNL's Crucible cast party skit is incredibly accurate to what goes on at cast parties. It's just embarrassingly very high school.
Yes, very high school. A lot goes down at those parties. Everyone's exhaling after 3-4 months of rehearsal and feels like they're on top of the world. And yeah, that's when a lot of stuff happens.
Yes, and so Michael and I slow danced at the cast party to Howie Days Collide. So I still love that song because of that. And I drive him home that night. Because my mom and dad had let me have the car, and so I was just driving Michael home, and I park in his driveway, and I turn to him, and he's trying to say goodbye to me, and I just kiss him.
Accosted. I mean, just straight out, flat out accosted.
I was getting vibes from him that he was into it, and he kissed me back immediately. So please, let's not. But you were still, the way you tell it, that you were very dazed and caught off guard still, even though you kissed me back. But here I am. I kiss him. We make out for like a couple minutes, 2 or 3 minutes.
I mean, I don't know if people need that level of detail.
And then you go inside the house, and I sit there just like squealing, thinking, "Oh yeah, this is gonna work again. I'm finally back with him." And not just I've done it or whatever. But I was in love with Michael from the very second I actually had a conversation with him. And I just knew that he was the one. He was mine. And so we get back to, that was a Saturday night. We get to school on Monday, and on Instant Messenger, I was in the library, Michael is messaging me saying, yeah, that was kind of a mistake. This really can't work. And then I convince him, we need to talk about this. Can I meet you after school?
It was like, I mean, to be clear, it was like you can't just kiss me and then, but it's like, no, I was accosted. You can't put that on me. Okay, continue.
So Michael lives like a couple of blocks from our high school. We went to Kenmore East High School in Tonawanda.
Wow, you are just you want to give out my social? My goodness. Okay, continue.
You're the one who wanted to tell the story about how we met.
I know you don't need to give. You want to go over my report card?
I want to paint the picture.
Yeah, you're painting it already.
So I go over to Michael's house, and we proceed to sit on his gold and cream floral couch for 2 hours while Michael gives me every single reason why we shouldn't be together, and I give him every single rebuttal known to man. And at the very end, he agrees that we can date. And this is May 2nd, exactly 1 year from when we first started dating, where he agrees, and he's going out to George Washington University at the end of August, so in 3 months' time. And so he agreed even though he was going off to college, 350 miles away. But that's also how good I am at convincing him.
Very lawyerly. And I just thought, I don't have a good reason to give her for why we can't date, or at least I thought I had several good reasons, but was quickly shown that they were not good at all. And so my thought was, well, I think it'll just kind of become obvious when I'm away and she's going through her senior year of high school that this is not going to work. And if it does work, great. But she was pressing. She's asking for it. So I don't feel bad about the fact that I'm going away to college. So let's just we'll try this out. And so I went away to college. And I wonder if we should stop there and maybe pick up the story in a future episode. I mean, I think, spoiler, we didn't break up ever again.
Yep.
And so we've been dating since, so this is the debate. So I mark us our relationship as starting in May of 2006,
and I mark it as May 2005.
That's right. And so our years there's some contestation there, but whether you mark it from 2005 or 2006, we've been together ever since. And it's been an incredible journey.
Yeah.
And we've been through...
I still love you just as much as I did.
Oh, I love you even
At
more.
that October
obviously.
Party. Yeah, so...
I love you much more than a 16-year-old boy who would dump you at a funeral parlor. Not to sweep you off your feet or anything.
But that's what I always get to say. I loved you first.
Yeah.
I always win all those fights.
Well, so there's your answer to where is the love. When we get back, we'll just say we'll pick up this story. I do want to talk about our engagement. Want to talk about what it was like dating. While we made our way through college and our early careers, but we'll cover that in a future episode. But we'll always be able to refer back to this one for the origin story. When we get back, we'll talk about Yuval Levin's op-ed in the New York Times. This is Where is the Love? This is Where is the Love? And Melissa, we saw this op-ed and thought it would be worth bringing to folks' attention in the top 5 this week. This is op-ed in the New York Times from Yuval Levin. Yuval's at the American Enterprise Institute, author of several popular books, including A Time to Build, which is a really wonderful book that I'd recommend to folks. He's also the editor of National Affairs, which is a publication that we get quite a bit out of. But Yuval writes this op-ed again, why do our politicians keep pursuing a losing strategy? And I'll just read the opening. In the spring of a new president's second year in office, political junkies know all too well what to expect from the midterm elections. A president of whatever party, elected largely thanks to public distaste for his opponent, came in with his party in control of Congress and intent on not wasting an opportunity for transformative policy change. For all his talk of building new coalitions, he focused on the priorities of his party's core activists, and by now it's pretty clear that most voters don't love what they see. The only way his party will avoid losing at least one house of Congress is if the other party somehow makes itself even more obnoxious. The question for November is whom the public will like less. And Yuval goes on to explain that in his view, this has been the pattern of our politics for 3 decades now. And it's become predictable, and the parties are locked in to this practice or malpractice of, instead of seeking to build the broadest possible coalitions, actually taking actions that limit the voters that they can appeal to. I did think, Melissa, one of the interesting things that Yuval zeroes in on here is the fact that our close elections actually are an impediment to healthier political parties, because while both political parties are minorities, there's no political party has a majority American support, and in fact, there are more independents than there are members of either party. That being said, while both political parties are actually minorities, Levin argues that they act as though they're majority parties, and that they're always on the precipice of an electoral victory. And the fact that elections are so close actually, lends itself to that notion. And I think that's really true. And so, if you're always on the verge of taking back Congress, then it really empowers the leaders to say, look, as long as we hold together, as long as there aren't folks that sort of break the company line, then we'll be fine. we don't need to change anything. That is what Mitch McConnell did in the wake of Barack Obama's victories in 2008 and Democrats' victories. He said, look, yes, Democrats won 59 seats in the Senate, but let's not react to this by necessarily changing much of our platform, or let's just hold together, make life as difficult and it's difficult for the party in power. Most importantly, blame the party in power for everything that sort of the public is unhappy with. And as long as we stay cohesive, we'll win back election. I guess the last thing I'd say about this article is Yuval argues that the answer is not so much, or his proposed solution is not so much for a centrism, but that our political parties ask different kinds of questions. So he writes here, it requires not so much offering different answers to the questions that have long shaped our political divisions, but taking up some new questions better rooted in the public's contemporary concerns about new sources of financial insecurity and high living costs, threats to parenthood and childhood, dangers of concentrated corporate power, sources of cultural dislocation, perils of internet governance, and other challenges that scramble familiar partisan dogmas. Such questions can be answered in right-leaning or left-leaning ways, but they first need to be asked. And so, Melissa, I think this is a helpful contribution to the ongoing conversation about the toxicity of our politics, about why our politics doesn't seem to be functioning as well as it could or should. What did you come away with?
Well, one of the very first things, if you look at you read the top two graphs of the article, and they're not so much like exactly what Yuval thinks is happening. What he's trying to describe is the pattern, what you should be expecting from the midterms after the president of whatever party is elected. And one of the things that it says here is that what happens in terms of what the voters think or how they feel, and then why the midterms go the way that they go, which is usually against the president's party, is that, end quote, a president elected largely thanks to public distaste for his opponent came in with his party in control of Congress and intent on not wasting an opportunity for transformative policy change, but for all of the talk of building new coalitions, he focused on the priorities of his party's core activists, and by now it's pretty clear that most voters don't love what they see. This is just so funny to me in a time of pernicious polarization that you read that, and yes, that's exactly what's happening, but it's mainly almost like an inception or just like a narrative-driven politics, because actually, and I'm taking this from a tweet that Bill Schur, one of my favorite writers out there for Washington Monthly, tweeted out on March 10th saying, here's a list of bipartisan success lists for President Biden. And he lists off the omnibus / Ukraine aid / Violence Against Women Act, postal reform, infrastructure, Uyghur forced labor, hate crimes, veterans benefits, Havana syndrome, debt limit, Medicare cut suspension, Juneteenth. These are all the not just bills that have been bipartisan bills. And so you look at that list. If we were to go meet a bunch of aliens and hand them this list, they would say, oh, things are going pretty well. But the thing is that there are narratives going on here that are tried and true, are historic, especially before this particular midterm, that are just being sort of perpetuated. And there's this narrative that nothing's been done, when it's like actually a lot of bipartisanship in a time of pernicious polarization. A lot of that's happening, and it's actually pretty incredible and should be lauded, but it's not being lauded whatsoever. So that's just something that I want to point out here as a really interesting dynamic of our politics right now.
Yeah. So let me.
Yeah, sure. Jump in.
Yeah. So I do think that's true. In the sense that you can tell a story about this administration and the last year. That is one of bipartisan accomplishment, which is one of sort of focusing where Americans can agree. I think for much of the first year, once it got past the inaugural, for much of the first year, that's not the story, frankly, that I think Democrats have been organized enough around.
Absolutely not.
Telling.
Completely their fault. Yes.
And so I don't know if it's so right. So part of what's happening is you have, and these are all sort of, it's such so sort of conventional that they're tropes, but just to sort of rehash the, you have a stratified media environment where you have more and a more democratized, open sort of social discourse, where what catches attention is not necessarily what's taking up the most oxygen or sort of what's the priority of a handful of people in DC, but actually what is most sort of unusual, or most sort of is most exciting or entertaining, and so it is hard to tell a story and keep a cohesive narrative about bipartisan accomplishment in an environment like this one. I don't think Democrats have tried enough. I think some Democrats don't want that to be the story. And the White House at times has not clearly indicated whether they want it to be the story, which has been a problem. Now, I think we've talked about the infrastructure bill here before. They were, I think, much delayed in trumpeting the infrastructure bill. They came to it late. That they almost had to, in my view, they almost had to wait until Build Back Better was sort of withering on the vine to feel like they could trumpet the infrastructure bill. And I thought that was unfortunate. But yeah, I agree with you. There's a story you could tell. I will say one of the things that can happen is people always forget. They look at polls of the party in power, and especially the president in power, and go, oh, wow, that the negative approval rating is it doesn't look good. I think the thing to remember is they're not in campaign mode yet, and so they haven't really marshaled the resources of the presidency to tell a cohesive narrative in campaign mode. And so it'll be interesting to see as this year continues to unfold what kind of message Biden sends. And then just the last one I'll make here is I do think that Biden would be in a better position to tell a bipartisan sort of narrative if he had Republicans in control of the House or the Senate. I think it's very hard to. I think it has not been natural for him to have no Republicans in power to sort of play off of, and to be basically in charge of navigating intra-democratic sort of squabbles in Congress, particularly when you look at the House. And I'm interested to see if Republicans take back the House, the Senate, or both, what kind of political reset that offers, for the president. Yeah.
And then that's very helpful. And then the thesis at the end, which you went over a bit, where he doesn't use these words, but it seems like these might be the appropriate words, that this idea that whichever party genuinely tries, so not just from a superficial sense of just grabbing some voters for a certain day, getting their vote, and then dropping them, but genuinely trying to be a Big Tent party. He doesn't use Big Tent, but that's what I would call it, a Big Tent party. that if you try to be a Big Ten party, ask different questions, then you'll be able to cut through this record high polarization that we've been in for far longer than we've ever been in before, at a height that is just that we've never been at before. I'm just a bit skeptical. And again, this is a New York Times op-ed, 800 words. We know Yuval has much more to give than this.
Yeah.
But I'm very skeptical that this is the response to, again, the term that I'm using, pernicious polarization. You can go back to one of our previous episodes where we go over this term. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think I think a key thing to remember here. Remember, Yuval is an institution guy. We wrote a book called A Time to Build. So I think what he would probably add to sort of his urging the asking of new questions is the building of new institutions that can support sort of a changing paradigm in our politics, which is to say, like, one of the principal challenges here is that the questions that are being asked now have a lot to do with the sort of with the landscape, with sort of the alignment of the coalitions of our political parties. So you really need an injection of new players, institutions with new kinds of agendas that can provide and change the kind of incentive structure that makes it not possible for new questions to be asked, because new questions can be asked, but will make it possible for those kinds of questions to be sustained. I think we talked in the last episode about some new institutions, and I do think that we're in a period where there's a lot of energy around building new things, and that's what's going to be, I think, necessary for changing the kind of dynamic that Yuval talks about in the piece.
Sure, and I'm completely on board with that. That makes a lot of sense to me. But what do you do for people like Yuval? A question that I have for you and others who really favor creating long-lasting change and paradigm shifts through institutions and not through individuals. Millennials and Gen Z don't like institutions and don't really trust them. So what do you do when a growing cohort of voters feel this way, and by just pure logic? And obviously we'll have to wait and see, but Gen Alpha coming afterwards, if these two generations are feeling this, won't it be even less trust? I mean, maybe the pendulum will swing enough. The Gen Alpha will be the generation that comes back to institutions, but by that time still Gen Z and millennials will be like the major cohorts of voters. The highest percentage of voters.
So a few things. I think that a lot of the energy and drive of and sort of opinions of millennials and Gen Z will be wasted or neutered if they are not channeled through institutions.
Agreed.
And so, one possible sort of future is one in which institutions play an even bigger role because or I should say, institutions that actually represent fewer and fewer people have increased influence because you just have a whole bunch of folks that are just sort of checking out. Now, it's important when you talk about institutions, it's not just like the Rotary Club. I think that there's an opportunity to build sort of 21st century institutions that can organize people and represent people and provide some stewardship of inputs over the long haul. So I'm not ready to give up give up on institutions, nor am I ready to give up on millennials and Gen Z folks contributing to and building their own institutions for this period. I think they'll look different. They'll probably look a little less hierarchical.
I was about to say they're gonna look less hierarchical.
They'll look flatter. Although I'm interested to see. I think that there are going to be some interesting lessons learned about in that specific area over the next 5-10 years, and it'll be interesting to see if sort of thinking evolves there. But yeah, so I think it's a great point. I just don't see what the pathway is forward other than what we have now, which is a coalition-based politics where the coalitions, the representatives of these coalitions are often pretty far removed from those they're claiming to represent. And I kind of think like that, I hope that kind of system can only succeed, can only hold up for so long. And in fact, I think what we're seeing now is it breaking down. The question is just whether our political parties are going to be able to change and accommodate themselves and actually match the moment and match the people. And of course, Levin's op-ed is describing all of the ways in which they're not and have been resistant to doing that over, in his view, the last 30 years or so.
That's really helpful. Thank you for answering. I have a lot more to say here, but I think we'll end it here. But I mean, we're getting into institutions here, but a lot of this just comes down to how do you actually break through our current levels of polarization, which is a question that you and I have been asking again and again and again. And we think it'll probably take probably even beyond a multi-pronged strategy, many different avenues and outlets. Because I think about tech here, I think about social media, I think about disinformation and misinformation here. Obviously, this doesn't even bring in ideology, the ideological ends of our current polarization. Yeah. But that is for another time.
Yeah, no, I think I would encourage folks to read the op-ed. Let us know what you think, what your experience and how you view things might match up with the op-ed. And obviously, this is an ongoing conversation. Melissa, it was good as always. Talking with you would really urge folks to subscribe. reclaiminghope.substack.com. You can get the podcast, get all the content and analysis we provide throughout the week into your inbox, and we so appreciate those of you who are already subscribers. Melissa, I enjoyed this episode.
Me too.
Yeah, it was a good late night conversation.
Quiet storm. Is that how it's said? I can't remember. I haven't listened to Quiet Storm in a while.
Quiet storm.
Oh yes, okay.
Flowing. I love smoking. Okay, all right, folks. This has been Where Is the Love? Talk to you next week.
Bye.